Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver on a 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. And this is what your hitch is going to look like when it's installed and not in use. It's really nice. There's an access panel from the factory on the Jeep that allows you to get everything nice and covered up and OEM. And then whenever you're ready to tow, it's as simple as taking the panel out, and then you have full access. So really nice, you get all the clean look, but all the usability of your hitch. The receiver is going to be a 2" by 2", which is kind of the standard size for trailer hitches. So if you're picking up a ball mount, bike rack, or cargo carrier, there's going to be tons of options available, as this is kind of the standard size. And all of those accessories are going to stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. This is not included with the hitch, but many times when you pick up accessories, they'll have pin and clips already in them. If you wanted a locking pin and clip, that's really nice if you plan on leaving your accessories on the back of your Jeep. It becomes a deterrent having that lock. No one's just going to be able to walk away with your stuff. The plate style safety chain loop makes it super easy to hook up standard S hooks or even larger clevis style hooks from your trailer. And speaking of trailers, this has some pretty serious capacities. As far as gross trailer weight rating, which is the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it, it's rated at 7,500 pounds. So pretty heavy duty capacity. The tongue weight, which is the downward pressure on the inside of the receiver tube opening, that's mostly for your bike racks and cargo carriers. That comes in at 750 pounds, which to be honest, like a 4-bike rack, I highly doubt you would ever see 750 pounds or a cargo carrier loaded up. So capacities out the gate are really good for this. Now it can be used with a weight distribution hitch, but the numbers are going to stay exactly the same with that 7,500 for gross trailer and 750 for tongue weight. And you should always check the vehicle's owner's manual to see what it's capable of towing. Just because the hitch says that it's rated at something doesn't mean that the vehicle is. And also, whatever ball mount you pick up or any accessories, you want to make sure that all those weight numbers jive and take the lowest capacity out of all of them to stay safe. Now, many accessories in bike rack and cargo carrier realms can stow in a vertical position, and you want to make sure that it's able to work on this vehicle. The center of our hitch pin to the furthest point of our fascia is maybe about 2 inches, so I really don't worry that you're going to have any issues finding accessories that are able to fold on this. Now, keep in mind, if you want to open up your rear hatch, you're going to have to fold those down, but you can at least stow that while you're out driving. As far as ground clearance goes, this one comes in with a pretty substantial 24 inches, and that's going to be important for choosing accessories generally for ground clearance to make sure that it bottom out. That's not really the case here. This is going to be really important though when choosing a ball mount. So you can measure from the ground to the top of the coupler of your trailer and then compare that with the 24 inches and figure out what the rise or drop necessary would be to get everything nice and level. I would almost be willing to bet it will be a drop configuration, but just making sure you get the proper drop for your application is going to be key. Now, when it comes to the installation, this hitch isn't terribly hard to do, and it's totally worth it because this allows you to use that panel and have a really clean overall look when it's installed. It does require taking the fascia off because you're going to be pulling off the bumper impact beam and replacing it with the hitch. So that involves taking the taillights out, taking some screws off of the fender liners. None of it's terribly difficult. But as a whole package, there's a little bit of work that goes into this. If you've never pulled a fascia off, not to worry. That's not really common for a lot of people, and it's not that difficult to do. Now, if you're going to be doing this at home, I'm going to walk you through step by step, and we'll be able to get this hitch installed in a couple hours. You might want an extra set of hands, but if you do decide that maybe this is beyond your scope, you don't have the tools to do it, the place to do it, or even the want to do it, you can reach out to our dealer locator to find someone close to you to get your hitch installed. And if you are doing this on your own, follow along, we'll get this hitch installed. Our installation to get the hitch in place is going to require taking the rear fascia off. And if you've never done that, totally get it. I never really pulled a fascia off until I started working here. It's not that difficult to do, but there is going to be a decent amount of hardware that comes off, and I highly recommend having a nice organized spot to keep all of your hardware. It'll make reinstallation a lot easier. And the first thing we're going to tackle is going to be the screws that are going to be underneath our fascia panel. You're going to find 2 10mm screws on each side for a total of 4, and we're going to take our 10mm socket and get those removed. Now you're going to head to your wheel well, and on the back side there's going to be 4 screws, so just work your way up, and they're going to be an 8mm socket to get those removed, and we're going to do that on both sides. Now it can get a little bit tight here, but with a ratchet and socket you should be able to access these fairly easily. Next, we're going to just grab that wheel well liner now that it's loose and just pull this out. And this is going to allow us to gain access to the clips for this wheel well trim, which does kind of interlock into the fascia. So we'll need to get that removed so we can get the fascia taken off. And there's going to be a series of white clips that snap in, and that's what we're going to be removing. So giving pressure and pulling back to get those clips to separate is going to be key. And what I'm using is a 7mm socket. So if you find the white push pin, you just slide that on the top and that'll compress those clips, making it pretty easy to just pop out. So hold pressure, and then as you move up, just go for that next white clip, put your socket on there and work your way up. And you're going to go back about here. Don't peel back too far, and definitely don't put harsh pressure on it. You don't want to create a crease on the plastic. Unfortunately, that's something that you probably can't fix after it's creased, so just take your time. And once we're popped out, we'll gain access to the hardware that's going to be up here. So those white clips you can see are just located, they kind of work their way up, but there's 3 of them, and with that socket, as I mentioned, just press it on the top and that'll help push that through. Now, I'm going to put a shop towel in here. You can use a paper towel or whatever, just to kind of create a wedge, and that way we can gain access and remove the 10mm screw that we have right here. And once you get that out, we'll just repeat the same process on the other side. Now also on both sides, we're going to have electrical connections that go to our fascia, and we'll want to separate those so we can pull the fascia off later. There's a locking tab that's gray. If you just pry that back with your fingernails, that should allow you to push in and get that plug separated. Sometimes these will fight you a little bit. So if you need to, that plastic Christmas tree, you can pop that off to give yourself a little bit of extra leverage. But we should be able to get this to separate. We'll have one on each side, so make sure you get those separated. Now you can open up the hatch. We're going to be working next to our tail lights, and you'll find that there's going to be a black cover on both sides. We're going to pry that out. There's hardware hiding behind there that we need to gain access to. So I have a trim panel tool. If you have a small flathead or a plastic trim panel tool, they work really good to pop these out. And that's going to gain access to that 10mm bolt. So we'll get that removed and then repeat on the other side. The next thing that we're going to tackle is going to be the plastic cover that's right by our tail light. And this is just kind of a plastic push pin. So your best bet is if you can wedge underneath that panel, you can just pry that back, and then we'll work this out. And you'll find that there's a T30 Torx bit that's holding our tail light in. We're going to get that removed. And then we should be able to slide this taillight out. Now there may be some pins that align it here, so just take your time, and once I get it popped out, I'll show you exactly where those are at. The alignment pins are located, there's 3 of them, and I found that with the taillight, if you just kind of bump this portion out, be careful that it's not pinching, but it should kind of pull out in this fashion. We'll separate the plug by pulling back the red tab, pushing down on that tab, and we should be able to get this to pop out. Might fight you just a little bit. And if it's really fighting you bad, you can take a small flathead and wedge it under here when you push the button, and that'll help get this taken out. If you need a little bit more room, you can pop this out, and that's going to make it a lot easier to attack this clip. We'll set our taillight aside just inside the vehicle, and then we're going to repeat the same steps on the other taillight. Now we're getting ready to pull the fascia off, but before we do that, for a little added protection, put painter's tape along the seam of the rear fascia as well as the rear quarter panel, just because it's going to be rubbing against each other when you take it off, but also when you put it back on. This will help prevent any scratches in your clear coat. So pretty easy way to, keep your vehicle looking perfect while you get your hitch installed. So it's up to you, but I do recommend getting an extra set of hands for the fascia. It can be a little bit cumbersome, and having a nice safe place to put it while you're getting the hitch installed is also going to be key. So you can use the box that it came in, or that the hitch came in, or just, you know, in the grass, somewhere where it's not going to get scratched. So I've gotten Jesse to help me pull off the fascia, and having that extra set of hands will help support it as you start to pop it back. But you want to start at the back corners and then work your way towards the middle. So if you just pull back where that 10mm screw was, you'll start to see these clips pop out fairly easily, and just keep pressure along the seam. And as you get up to the taillight, you'll see that there are these little notches or plastic snaps that it could sit in. So as you can see here, I just lift it over. And once you get both of those sides pulled back, you can grab underneath the fascia, and there's clips along here. They should pop out fairly easily, so if you want to put pressure right here, you'll have to give it a little bit of force. And as you can see, don't be afraid of these. You can go under here and try to pop them out, but for the most part, if you just pull straight back, you should be able to get those to snap. And now we'll just set our fascia aside. Now you're going to head over to where your muffler has the hanger attached to the body of the vehicle, and we're going to get this removed. The bolts where we put our hitch in are going to be these ones, so to give us a little bit more space to work by getting our old bumper beam out and hitch in, having this exhaust out of the way is really going to make a big difference. So first we're going to tackle this hanger, and then there's going to be one underneath the vehicle that we're going to tackle as well, but this will make our life a lot easier for the hitch install. Our other exhaust hanger is going to be located right behind the rear control arm. And before we get that loosened up, the exhaust will want to drop down, and we want to support it. We want to make sure it doesn't get bent upstream. So I'm going to lift so it can kind of free hang. But in order to combat that, I have a cam buckle strap that I'm just going to create 2 points to make a cradle for this. So really anywhere on the suspension that we can hook onto will work. If you're doing this in your garage or driveway, you can just use a block of wood or a box. The main thing is the exhaust isn't just holding itself up. This hanger just has one bolt, so we'll get that taken out. It's 13mm again. And now we can see our exhaust kind of hanging down here. Got my cradle working, so we can move right along. Our factory bumper beam is going to be replaced with the hitch, so it slides into the frame rails, and our bumper beam is attached by some factory bolts. You'll have 3 on each side, and they're 21mm sockets to accomplish that. So I'll knock these loose, and then we'll get them all removed. And just as before, we're going to repeat this on the other side, and you'll see why we lowered that muffler down. It'll make it a lot easier to gain access to this hardware. Once you have your hardware removed, bumper beam should come out fairly easily. You may have to kind of go back and forth with it, but and you can do whatever you want with this. It's not going back on the vehicle, so you can keep it, you can scrap it, do whatever you want, but we're not going to use it. You're going to grab your hitch and slide it in where we've removed that bumper beam. If you need an extra set of hands, by all means, go ahead and grab someone to help support it. Now, the L model versus the non-L model will change as far as mounting, but ours, we pushed it back to where it pretty much rests against that spare tire. And what we're going to do is grab a carriage bolt and a serrated flange nut and drop this into place. That way we can get it started and it'll hold that hitch. So I'm using the second hole back, and I'm just going to thread our flange nut on. And that should align 2 of the holes on the side for the other carriage bolts. To get the other side bolts in place, again, these should be lined up. You can take it and feed it by hand. That further one back, if you're struggling to be able to get it, they do supply pull wires. And so what you can do with that is take the coiled end, feed it through the hole and the hitch, and then pull that to this access point, thread on your carriage bolt, and then you can pull this through, can hold that carriage bolt in place and get your flange nut started. And then at this point, we're just going to get the hardware in the rest of the spots. So make sure you get the 2 side bolts and the 1 carriage bolt on the bottom on both sides. And depending whether or not you have the L or the non-L is going to determine whether or not you're using the smaller carriage bolts. And those are just going to be a little bit farther forward than the ones that we drop through the bottom of the frame. So just take that into account. If you have a non-L model, you're going to need to do that hardware. We do have an L, so we're not going to show you that, but just make sure that you're getting that hardware in place. And with all of the hardware started by hand, you can snug that down with a ratchet or an impact. It's going to be a 3/4 inch socket, but we're going to be coming back with a torque wrench to make sure that they're going to be tight enough, obviously, to tow this down the road, but also not too tight, putting stress on anything. So our torque wrench is really going to dial that in perfectly. So we'll go through and torque these down. Torque settings are found in the instruction manual, and if you need a torque wrench, you can buy one here at eTrailer, but generally you can go to an auto parts store and rent one for free. But this is a crucial step, so make sure you're torquing them down. If you do have those smaller carriage bolts on the non-L, this torque setting is going to change for that hardware because it's smaller, so just make sure you're taking that into account. With all of that hardware torqued down properly, you've officially installed your hitch. All that's left to do is put everything back together, including your exhaust and also the electrical connections that we took off. And it's just going to be the reverse order of what we did. So get everything put back together, and then all you need to do is load up your accessories and hit the road. But if you're doing trailer wiring, this might be a really good time to get that knocked out. You already have your plugs accessible, and you can get that routed up nice and clean. It is a little bit easier with that fascia taken off. It's not to say that you can't do it once the fascia is on, but if you're planning on doing trailer wiring at the same time, do it right now. You can thank me later. Now, if you've got this hitch installed on your Jeep and the video helped, please let us know. If you have any pictures or pointers or anything that someone else might want to know that might be purchasing the same hitch for their Jeep, please leave us a comment. That really helps us make our videos as best as possible so neighbors like you can get the proper product for what you want and not have any buyer's remorse. My name's Brad from eTrailer. Thanks for watching.